It's Wednesday, and that means it's Submarine Wednesday with relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons. Back again with the 1960s vintage Renwall cutaway George Washington Polaris launching submarine model. The one that I've been recreating that I had built originally way back when it first came out. To recap, last Wednesday I had a 4-hour stream, and I'm going to take like 2 minutes to tell you what I accomplished because it's incredible how little I got done in that stream. I was able to get 2 colors of brown onto this bunk unit. Fairly poorly done. There's a bunch of touch-ups that needs to be done on it, and I need to paint the sheets and pillows white, and that'll be a little bit of a challenge. But yeah, I got that done in 4 hours. I was able to paint the red tips of these torpedoes, which now also need some touch-up as I'm looking at them. There's little shiny spots, so that'll be something. And then spent the better part of a half hour gluing them onto the racks. I have no idea how it took so long, but they're on there anyway, and they're stuck. And it looks like they're pretty much okay, other than the red torpedo tip touch-up that needs to be done. And I touched up the periscopes and snorkels and things and painted the tops darker gray, and I'm looking at this and I can't believe it, but there's actually spots that need more touching up. It's like everything needs like 3 touches up. And then I was able to get a little fine felt tip pen and highlighted the ladder inside of the escape hatch and the access port. What can I say? That took the entire 4 hours of stream. You know, to be fair, I did spend a half hour and a break, and I did a chat about what I was trying to get done but didn't get done. So still, that was 3 hours worth of stuff. So if you're watching this and you're wondering how long Submarine Wednesday is going to go on, just to give you a hint, this is the submarine hull, okay? And the part I'm working on is this little bit up here. That's the torpedo room and the sail. And then there's the rest of it. And the rest of it, I can show you the box top, okay? Starting from the back, there is this highly complicated engine room kind of thing. There's the reactor rooms. There's the missile control room. There's all the missile tubes, including one that fires spring-loaded Polaris missile. And as I recall, that actually works. There's a little spring latch on there that shoots it up, and I think it goes maybe 6 or 7 inches. And then working on this bit here and this bit here, and then there's all of this, more bunks, tables, little bitty chairs, periscopes, highly detailed control panels and stuff. So if I continue at the pace I'm working at now, I should be finished in about 3 years. Yeah, it's I don't know, a little bit discouraging, I guess, how long it takes to get everything done, and then how everything needs to be touched 3 or 4 times. Even this, there's this little, I did that twice, and there's little bits of silver underlayment of the dark gray. So I don't really have a good explanation for why that is being so recalcitrant. I'm going to be painting a bunch of green stuff today because the instructions say green. The bulkhead is green. The inside of the hull, there's a double hull here, is green. The inside of the sail on the hull half here is green. The outside of these bunks are green. I can't do that until I get the sheets all painted and everything touched up. But I figured I don't need to do everything that's green all at one time, because if I waited, then we'd be seeing no progress at all. And that would be discouraging to the viewers who expect to see a submarine come together. So I'm going to be painting those green. One thing I realized is that the floor here, this bit here, these are supposed to be brown. Okay, the floor is in between, but the bottom of the floor, on the very, very bottom, is the ceiling of the control room. And the control room is painted green, so this is going to be painted green as well. So I've got all of those. This also will be painted green. This is the forward bulkhead of the torpedo room. You can tell because it has the torpedo hatches on it. But is amazingly detailed. They decided to put all sorts of like dials and gauges and junction boxes and even a clock here. This doesn't go in until the next stage, so I'm going to attempt to make the appearance of progress today by painting some base coats of green on a whole bunch of stuff, which will get it sort of ready for a little bit of assembly. Okay, and I'm hedging there because the instructions say that this piece, okay, this piece gets glued in here. That's pretty straightforward. Okay, I can cement that in. But the second thing that goes in is the bunk, and the bunk isn't anywhere near completed, and it's turning into a little bit of a nightmare, actually. But, you know, you can do a few of those things. Actually, this cementing in the torpedoes, the torpedo tubes and racks on this section is later in the instructions, but it's independent of the stuff that's cemented onto this bulkhead. So getting that done opens up the slight possibility, the slim possibility of actually putting the torpedo tubes into this bulkhead. This will be done. The bottom of this will be done. Little staircase that gets cemented onto this one. It's painted green anyway. I hope the green paint works. It did when I tested it. Probably will need 2 coats like everything else. So I'm going to get that going so that the first coat dries so that I can get around to painting the second coat. And while I'm in between coats, I'll probably touch up the torpedoes and the periscopes and stuff just to do it. Try not to break anything else. And then, yeah, see how far we get. And I need to do some flips. Let's see if I can move these without taking care of that. So this is Submarine Wednesday. That's become, we'll see if this becomes a tradition or if everybody just gets tired of my lack of progress. But yeah, you know, it might be fun watching me go on for 3.5 hours and get practically nothing done. That might be relaxing for some people. What shall I flip? I'm going to flip this almost empty bottle of scarlet red paint. And you can tell it's been laying on its side. You can tell where the almost empty part of the paint has landed because, yeah, there it is. It wobbles, but it doesn't fall down. Okay, so this is mostly stuff that can't be messed up too badly. I'm going to bring out the parts that need to be painted green. Okay. Not this, because this I need to paint the sheets, and then I need to do some massive touching up, and then retouching and touching and retouching and retouching until it finally looks okay. So I'm going to put these pieces aside so that I don't get green paint on them. That sounds like sort of a plan. Here's green paint. And now I'm going to keep narrating because there's nothing else going on. Lost my brushes that I was going to be using there. And carefully put them aside in a place so I wouldn't lose them. So I'm going to do the green base coat. We'll see how it goes. It'll probably need a second coat. I'll come back and do that between coats while it's drying. I'm going to touch up the torpedo tube heads and the tops of the periscopes. And I'm getting a little bit of a shake there. I know everybody enjoys that. Here, let's see if I can get it going there. There we go. Anyway, there. I'm going to start with this because there's just no detail on it. This will give me a chance to see what I need to do to brush the paint effectively. Then I'll probably paint this. As I said, this is the bottom of the floor. This is the bottom of the floor for the sail, but it's the ceiling for the control room, which is green. Then I will paint this because there's a little bit of detail around the stairs and the fire extinguishers. And then the stairwell is a little bit of a challenge. I need to paint the underside of it, and then the part that's cemented down is the bottom underneath here, so I can use the sticky tack, I think. Anyway, there's no other way to hold it. So let me squeeze out some of this paint. Green paint. There's a fair amount of it because the surface I'm painting is fairly large. And then we'll just see how it covers. I'm using a larger, soft brush. Almost like painting. It looks pretty bright. It tones down a little bit as it dries, but this is as close as I can come to the color on the box top. And it is way better looking than the darker greens, like the when this first came out. Everybody was using Testors enamels because that was pretty much the paint. Didn't really have a lot of the acrylics then that I recall at all in the 1960s. Testors and green. There was one green. I mean, green was green. If the instructions said green, that's the color you used. And there was probably a light green. They had a lot of colors for car models. Okay, well, we'll see how that looks when it dries. I'm guessing I might need to go over it one more time, but we're not sure. Getting the paint in these holes is not really a helpful thing because those need to be cemented later. And I'm likely just going to have to scrape the paint out of there somehow. when it comes time to cementing, because the cement doesn't adhere to the paint. But that's another day. Okay, so let's do that. Now this one, these things here are what hold up the decks, and it's almost tempting. It has been tempting to try to paint those the same color as the floor, that tan color. I'm still torn about that. Because on one hand, you know, these look to be part of, it's just the way the model is built. Is that these are the glue spots, the places where the cement is put in. But then there's going to be these green protuberances over the floor. But when I paint them green, I can always overpaint them later. Paint them brown color. Fit some pieces in, and then I'll have to decide at that point whether I want to try to match the floor color. Just want to leave it green as part of the hull. There's these little ladders here. I need to get the green paint into the rungs of the ladders, and then what I'll be doing is the same thing I did with the other ladders, which is hole there. I have no idea why that's there, really. One of the floors goes in here. Just have to see later. Into this dries, I'll position one in there and then make a decision about whether I want to paint just the tops of these ridges, the floor color, like that would be part of the floor. I'm not so worried about the bottom, but I might, you know, if I'm going to do it at all, I'll do both. Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, we'll see how this looks a little bit later. I'm going to get out the little brush. This is the bottom of the piece that goes here, and I'm painting it green. The floor is brown, the top, but the tan, they call it. But the bottom is the ceiling of the control room, and it'll look real weird. It'll look very weird if it's if this is this brown chunk of ceiling there for some reason. So to paint this green so that it matches the walls when I get around to doing the control room, which is, I think, step 4 out of many steps. I mean, if I were to do this, like if this were a professional display model, this would all be airbrushed, because no matter what one does with it, you know, and I got the green up a little too high on the side of this. This will show, and that's a hatch, so I need to repaint that. The color I'm using for the hatches, it's a little thing, but it's one of those things that, you know, could have been preventable, but wasn't. Maybe that's why this ends up taking like 3 hours to paint nothing, because you have to come back and touch up that hatchway, and then hope that the touch-up doesn't end up just causing one to have to retouch in the other direction again. Like those torpedo heads and other things, those were touched up like 2 or 3 times, and there's still spots on them that are not what they need to be. Okay, well, that's green now. Let's paint this one. Same sort of deal here. I need to paint around the fire extinguishers and the staircase. Getting the paint up to, but not onto, the surfaces. Bifocals and can't see squat. Painting the tops of the fire extinguishers. Okay, that line's okay. That's the side that shows, so that's the especially important one. What I mean by that is it goes into the submarine this way, so this is a side that is visible. There, well, the same sort of deal here. Get the green paint up the side of the stairwell there. Cool. The bottom is so critical, because that's where the walkway goes. I'm going to put a little bit of bottom though. Okay, and then I'll get the larger brush out and spread that paint broadly here without disturbing what has already been painted. You can hear it, but there's chipping in the background. The other kind of tradition we've had on relaxing painting Dyson Dungeons is that there is bad weather on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We'd kind of gotten away from that a little bit recently. There've been some days when we didn't have a blizzard. Today we're having some thunderstorms, and I looked at the radar before coming down to the painting studio. There was some pretty significant... Oh, all these little prongs are going to... These actually show, especially the sides and the bottom. So yeah, we have some pretty significant thunderstorms headed this way. Sometimes, for whatever reason, we seem to be in like a little bit of a window. Storms will go around us. They'll go north or south instead of just... yeah, we'll need a second coat. It leveled fairly well, but there's unevenness in the color. Anyway, it looked like it was headed our way, and I don't know. I mean, it may or may not come by, but if it does, there's always a slight chance that we could have a power outage, in which case the stream would very abruptly be interrupted. Totally off camera. So yeah, so the stream would be very abruptly interrupted, and everything. Start over. Anyway, if we suddenly get interrupted, it is because of that. And we would decide whether or not we are able to come back or not. And if we can, we will. And if we can't, then I'll apologize in advance for, the weather-related interruption. Yeah, this is messy, but I have to get underneath here and get that painted in order to put it on the sticky goo so I can get the rest of it. Hardly any paint left in the well, and I got lazy and didn't squeeze any more out because being lazy. Okay, let's clean these brushes. Now we have green things. Stuff is green. Doesn't, it looks kind of like the color on the box top. It's a little, the color on the box top is, you can see it's a little yellower, but this is as close as I could get with the colors that we had, and I didn't want to custom mix anything. This hull actually looks like this is pretty good. I'm not going to mess with this, especially since I have to do some cleaning up on the insides of where the torpedo racks are going to go. How did the rest of this turn out? This is drying quickly. Okay, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to touch up the torpedo heads, the red bits. Set this aside for a second. Bring the whole tray up. I don't want to keep bouncing these around any more than I need to. Some more little thorough cleaning in a bit, so let me mixing this paint because for some reason there's little spots on the heads of these torpedoes that just showed up after I went through all the trouble of painting them twice. So they're on the racks. I can see what shows and what doesn't. And I can do the touch up to make sure that they are okay. They look okay. These are the ones that go into the curved hull piece. If I actually assemble something today, I'm not making any promises about that at all, but if I do, these if any of that assembly stuff kind of thing happens today, that's going to be what it is. Not using my head magnifiers right now to be frightened by the lack of detail here. I mean, if there are flaws, I only want to catch the ones that are visible to my naked eye, which is not quite what it used to be. So, letting some little flaws go. Yeah. So this is like 2 weeks worth of work, right? To get these torpedo racks and torpedo tubes, torpedoes onto the racks and painted. You know, moving along. I would say that this is kind of interesting. The construction pace of this submarine is probably about as fast as the actual submarine. So that's what we're doing. It's a hyper-realistic simulation. Is that it's taking as long to build the model as it took to build the actual submarine. It's certainly beginning to feel that way. But I've got green paint on things now. I didn't have any green paint on things before, so that's something. It's unfortunate that this... Yeah, I mean, if the light catches it, you can see that the where I painted it around the edges. Yeah, it's not smooth and even. Well, it's not a professional thing, that's for sure. Okay, be second coating things. Be second coating this. Yeah, this bulkhead. I think I'm going to put a second coat on. If nothing else, I'm going to try to, you know, even out some of these things that look like brush marks. Okay. Let me also just put this in here. So if I assemble anything today on the bulkhead, it's going to be, I'm going to cement this in. That's pretty exciting, huh? I might have that put in, and I might get the torpedo racks into this part of the hull. The test will be getting the bunk done. Just in the interest of, I don't know how this is going to go. This is here. I got the paint up too far, so I'm going to touch that up. Now, in case I go too far, and then I have to touch up the green again. So let's not just keep going back and forth over and over again. You can hardly see it, but there's this hatch that is representing a hatch. Roots down. Feeling. Yeah. Painted the green, I got a little too far. Yeah, got it onto where the hatch is, so I need to put a little different, little bits. I'm sorry, this is going to be off camera. Try to move it here. It's painting just this little bit here. But the hatch is clearly the hatch again. And that turned out pretty well. Yay. Okay, so I'm going to put these back on the cardboard and put this aside again. After I put a second coat on these guys, I'm going to touch up the periscopes and the snorkels before I forget. Otherwise, that's something I just will forget. Be using this, so I can take this guy off and set it aside. Yeah, so let's see if we can't get the coverage on here even. Way too much paint there. Yeah, I was afraid of that, and it's coming through on the other side. That is not what I wanted. See if I can salvage this. Paint in the hole is not a problem, because tubes go through there. Paint in the hole that goes through to the other side is a problem. And this is the side that shows, so I need to be a little cautious about there. Okay, well, I'm going to leave that alone because I don't want to keep messing with it. What I'm trying to do here is get rid of, kind of like doing another coat and getting rid of some of the brush marks, or what look like brush marks near the detail parts. So making sure that the coverage is good. It's a bit uneven. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm using a good brush and the paint is fairly thin. There's still brush marks, you know, and it's just, this is going to look like a plastic model that's been painted, which is in reality what it is. Oh yeah, there's the staircase thing. I just want to make sure that that's well covered. Especially the bits that show. I'd say that paint probably, it wouldn't hurt if it were thinner. And I thinned it out before I started using it, but it was a full bottle. Anyway, that'll do. And then so we're gonna set these things as, oh yeah, almost forgot this bit. This bit needs to be done. A fair amount of this will actually end up showing. So I need to be somewhat cautious with it. So I'm going to take one of these floors, like an intermediate one. It's here. just... I need... So you look at this and you go, that's the floor, but this is green, okay? And if I painted that the floor color, I really think it would just look wrong. Ah, okay, there, that's helpful. That's where the staircase attaches. It glues onto here, but it also glues onto the back of the hull. I was wondering what that was all about, because otherwise it's not really clear where that's supposed to go. So the edge here, this is a cutaway. So all of these edges here, okay, and here, I'm going to be painting... I was thinking of painting the hull color, but this one needs to be painted that brown. I hadn't thought that through very well. These are going to need... I'm going to paint those, you know, while I'm messing with this and getting it wrong. Paint those too. Paint them the brown color. But first I need to... This is why everything takes so long, because I'm just not, like, well organized, I guess. Paint something and then I see it and go, oh, I don't like the way that came out, do it over. So I was saying this is a cutaway, and so where the hull is cut, it should be painted the hull color, which is a dark gray. But the edges of the floors, as I set one in there, and that's what I just did, is I set one in, and it was like, you know, that won't look good if that's the hull color. I'm going to go out of my way to paint it the floor color, and after it's all glued in later, if I decide later that it needs to be painted the hull color, then I'll just do it then. I can repaint it. I'm going to be using the fine pointed felt tip pen on that to do the ladders like I did with the others. Okay, well that'll do. This looks like it turned out okay. In other places, you put it in the control room, way back in the engine room. It's not used, so I'm going to, in a bit, actually thin it. That's... I'm going to have to remember to do that. I'm wondering, why is there this hole here? Why is there this hole? And I'm looking at the side of the hull, and there's like a plane a diving plane of some sort there. And when that goes in, it will show on this side, and I need to make sure that that's painted green so that it kind of matches what's going on there. Windows here, weird stuff on this. There's odd details here and there. Yeah, so I was going to move this aside, and I was going to fix the periscopes because they're not right. That was dark gray. To do this is to hold them, paint them, and then just stick them in here. But seriously, I did this twice. After I painted them, I went back and made sure I was touching them up, because I was painting the gray over the silver, and then they were fine, but now they're not. Maybe the stuff rubbed off a little bit, I guess. It is what it is. Yep. Touch the painted surfaces with our fingers so that we get paint all over everything. Well, it looks like at least this Submarine Wednesday, I've gotten more surface area painted than I had previously. So that's kind of a success, I guess. What I need to tackle next, though, are the bunks, and this what needs to be done there is I need to paint the sheets. The mold marks on this, there are a lot of mold marks on this model. I thought I had sanded them down pretty well, but not as well as... not perfect, I'll say that. Keep looking at everything from every angle, because whatever it is, it's not right. Okay, so these guys can just sit here poking out of the way, and that's done. So in this case, this actually is part of the hull. Okay, so this is going to be painted dark gray here. Okay. Actually, it would have made sense, since I had the dark gray paint out, to just go ahead and do that. Thing to be glued in and hard to reach. This area here, this is where the escape hatch goes in. That. and actually protrudes up above the outer hull, and the tops of the hatches will be painted the hull color because there's no sense of being painted differently. So the gray will go here and a little bit there, and I'm just going to do that and hopefully not make a mess of things. And then this piece will be done, except for cleaning out the cement contact areas. Cement contact areas, I'll probably get a little bit of a needle file or something and clean those out. And there's actually some non-zero chance that I might actually cement the torpedo racks into this part of the hull today. It depends on how the bunks go. And I'll explain that in a bit. They are really very challenging. Along here is where it goes into the other bulkhead. So that's the cutaway of the hull. That's why it's that dark gray color. It in there because that's the model cement contact area. Okay, well, bit of ragged edge there. Yeah, I know it's kind of silly, but I'm going to take a tiny dot of green paint and ungray that. Clean those brushes. I don't know how much of this has actually been on camera. I thought I had it lined up, but yeah, maybe not. This water is very green. Get this one out. Yeah, let's recap here. Let's put these brushes up out of the way and get the pieces back. I'm going to put this in alcohol solvent here a second. Recapitulate. I'm working hard to not knock things over, because I have been really good at knocking things over lately. Okay, we'll put these pieces back so we can see what we're working with here, right? It doesn't look like much, but these are all sorts of pieces that go to the torpedo room and the sail, which is at the, yeah. And the way this works is that this, in the torpedo room, this bunk thing, chunks of bunks, goes up here, okay? And then 3 torpedo racks go here into these holes, these guys here, like this. Okay? And they're supposed to go in there and not fall down. And this just got a little, just looks scabby, okay? I mean, I don't know, there's just brush marks everywhere. I wonder if I let this dry, if I get a really fine steel wool, once it's fully dry, I might just rub it. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do, is when it's really dry, is just rub it down with some really, really fine steel wool, or maybe polishing sandpaper to get rid of the brush marks. And I think the paint is thick enough that I won't be taking much off, but otherwise I don't like the way that looks at all. Okay. So this is, like, it's got bunks, and then this little walkway thing, and this goes between the torpedo tubes and the bunks. Not the torpedo tubes, the torpedoes and the bunks. And then the sail, which is this part up here, has these multiple layers of pieces here, and then these hydraulic tubes go in here, like that, and these periscopes and snorkels and things go in there. That one, I mean, it's not complicated in terms of the parts, but in terms of assembly, it's really kind of nasty, because all these tubes and pieces of equipment need to go through all of these holes, and they need to line up, and then they need to be inserted into here and cemented in here while they're still all lined up and moving. So that one's actually kind of a challenge. But this, I really don't like this. Like I said, I'm going to let this really dry well. I'm not going to cement anything into this today. I'm going to let it set for maybe a couple of days, and probably we'll do this off stream. Is I'm going to try to rub it down with some really, really fine steel wool or sandpaper to see if I can't get some of the brush marks out. It's tacky right now, so if I did it now, it would make it really ugly. This little bit of a stairwell, you know, looks okay. Is that a spot that isn't green that should be? Maybe. Bit of a stairwell goes up at the top here. Goes right up there. And if the steel wool thing works okay, I'll probably do the top of that a little bit too. And then there was this other piece. Huh. Lost. There it is, it's underneath. This was a little bit of a conundrum, because the bottom of the floor, at the bottom of the sail, this is the very bottom of it, is the ceiling of the control room, so I ended up painting that green. That's not going to show very much at all. It is inserted goes here like this. Okay. So if there's some brush marks on the bottom, if there's any brush markiness on the bottom, that's not going to show. This paint inside of these holes, that's not a problem here because these are cemented in there. So if anything, I'll need to take like a little file or something and clean that out so that these will fit. Instructions always say be very careful to fit everything before applying the final coat of cement. And then this edge here, and what I'm not sure about yet, I'm still not, is this is a cutaway, right? And so the hull needs to be, this is cut through the hull. That will be the hull color, this dark gray. But then you get things like the edges of these floors. And I don't know if it would look better if that were the color of the floor. I mean, there's a lot of these decks all through this bottom. And what they did on the box top is they just painted them white. Okay. They did the whole cutout. They painted the whole edge white, which doesn't make any sense. I think I'm going to stick with the convention of I'm going to paint these the dark instead of a white stripe to really highlight it. I mean, what's the difference? I'm going to paint it the hull color because that's the color of the metal that it was cut. And it'll be true for this there, and like this goes in here like that. It'll be true about the edge there. So my original plan, I'm going to stick with it. Fix the hatchway. I didn't fix it on the back because you will not be able to see that. This is where this little ladder thing goes. Yeah. Is the ladder that goes up to the next level of the deck. Anyway, that's all part of the challenge of making this all fit together later. But now I really can't do much of anything. All I'll be able to put together is the torpedo racks on this part of the hull. Making Poverty, thanks for joining. I appreciate it very much for you joining in, and thanks for joining chat. What we have here is a once-a-week special, the Submarine Wednesdays, where I'm working on constructing the same model I put together when I was very much younger. It's a 1960s vintage Renoir cutaway submarine model. This is actually the vintage submarine model. I bought some on eBay, and I'm trying to reconstruct what I did when I was young, except doing it in a little bit less childish way, which I did when I was younger, which means being more careful with the paint, using flat paints instead of glossy enamels, painting the detail, all of that kind of really good stuff. And the progress is exceptionally slow, just exceptionally slow. A lot of the paints needed to be thinned or manipulated so that they covered well. And some parts, like these bunks, are just nasty. Here, there's like the frame is one color, the floor is another color, which is not covering very well at all. So I'm gonna have to put like a third coat on there, and the challenge now is to somehow paint the sheets and pillows on these bunks without getting it on the brown, so that the brown has to be done again. It's really hard to get a paintbrush in there. So what I'm going to be using is, and then the white paint doesn't cover that well either, so we'll, anyway, I'm facing this with trepidation. I want it to look good, you know? I don't want it to look real yucky and it's kind of scabby looking. So I'm not sure. I mean, if worse comes to worse, I might just have to take all the paint out and start over. This is the best white that I have in terms of coverage. So I give it a major stirring here. And then I'm going to use a new brush. I haven't used this one before, but it looks like it will work for me. Maybe. Usually what we do, King Poverty, on Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons is usually we're working on dungeon tiles and minifigs because it's based off of Dungeons and Dragons. That's how Dice and Dungeons got started. But I've always wanted to rebuild this model, and I bought it maybe 15 years ago, just ages and ages ago, and never got around to it. And so I got permission from the other members of the Dice and Dungeons crew to do this one day a week. And if viewers liked it, then we would continue, and if viewers said this is a stupid idea, then I would do it on my own time, which means not on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 10 until 2. So this brush it's really cool. Yeah, progress is just, look, I painted something green today. And I painted something green and it looks scabby and I need to let it dry thoroughly and then sand it down so it's smooth. And this is done. Yeah, progress not happening. Anyway, this is a really cool brush that Nicole bought for me. It's very flat and it's got this beveled edge on it. And so what I'm hoping is that I will be able to, I'm going to start with the top one, is lay down a very well-defined, since it's flat, I can get up to the edge, level white paint like that. And then I don't know how many coats it's going to take or whether this needs to be thinned. I'm not sure. I really should test this on something. Because if it's coming out if it's too thin, it's not going to cover. If it's too thick, then this isn't ever going to show. I've already tested some paints here. It's not bad. It's going to need 2 coats, I think. Anyway, nothing to be done other than, I guess, get started and see what happens, right? Get it on camera here. And if I can get these top ones done, then I will make an effort to paint the ones underneath. It's going to need 2 coats, maybe even 3. Perilous to the next. But this brush is really good for this. What I'm trying to do is get it even on the back there. It's really important to have the line be consistent all the way across the top of the sheet. And then here on the side, there's a demarcation line between the bedclothes and the sheet and the edge of the bed. To do some brown touch-up, that's not surprising, but that's kind of how it's supposed to look. It needs to be, you know, multi-coated. Too high on the wall part or not. I might have to play around with that demarcation line a little later. Anyway, yeah, so we're painting pillows and sheets. Easy bit because it is on top, and the hard bits, see them in a second. Hoping that I won't have to go back and forth between the brown and the white too many times until I get it. It's this little bit of an edge of an overhang on the sheet. It clearly is supposed to be seen from the side. But in getting that, it's easy to get it down onto what is clearly supposed to be the bed frame. I think that'll be fairly easy to touch up with the brown paint. So now, let me wash this off and squeeze out some fresh paint. This thickens up really quite quickly. And I'm not sure I want it much thinner because then it wouldn't cover. Yeah. So those of you who are watching, I will point out that I am not a professional painter. What I am is an old guy who used to build models when I was a kid and is just sort of adequate at this sort of thing. So this, I'm going to try to, what I'm trying to do here is give the impression of it being a sheet. I can't get it all the way to the back, but you also can't see it very well. I'm going to paint this in a way that makes it look like it should. If even in fact there is parts of the sheet that are not painted. Because you look in there and it's in the shadow. You can't tell whether the white paint has gone all the way to the edge of the sheet or not. You can, whoa. I'm not too concerned at this point anymore about the front of the bed. It's just going to need brown touch up. I don't know if you can see it, but there's just the sheet ends, and then there's this edge to the bed there. So that it's kind of how it's going to end up looking. Yeah. I'm going to intentionally do this now. I'm going to intentionally paint the white over the brown and deal with it in touch up. Here, and it's the same sort of story. Paint far enough back so that you can see that it's sheet. That ladder is another story. Edge. This looks pretty ragged, but I think after going back and forth, as I will end up doing, after I get a second coat of white on and then doing some touch up, that as with several, like with the minifigs I've been painting, touch up isn't quite as bad as the initial appearance of. And why I decided to paint the brown first. Sure, it was a very good reason. Like, whatever. It'll just have to be repainted. And what I'll be aiming for is a nice clean edge between the sheet and the bed frame. I'll get back to doing that. Definitely not that now, but I can imagine how it will be, because the brown will cover the white pretty well, I think. So I'm looking into it and, just looking at it from various angles to see how deep I need to get the paint into the bunk to make it look like it should. And mostly what I'm dealing with here is that it's just a very uneven. It's not covering very evenly. Great. My foot cramped up. That doesn't help. I'm going to have to do some foot uncramping fairly soon. Okay, so I'm putting a second coat on here a little prematurely, but I want to see how it looks. And if I paint it in this direction, it doesn't look too bad. Certainly looks better than just one coat. They are sheets and pillows, and so a little bit of texture instead of it being perfectly flat is not an altogether bad thing. At this point, I want to make sure that there's white everywhere I want white, because the brown is going to come back to it. Unless the brown gets out of control, and it might. What I don't really want to be doing, if I can avoid it, is repainting a lot of white. Getting the floor color, I might have to rethink what I'm using for that, because it just isn't covering well at all. I mean, not at all. There's already two coats on it, and it doesn't look good. And there's a lot of it throughout the entire control room. And if that's just not going to, good grief. Okay, well, it's looking even worse than it ever did. But, those edges are pretty easy to fix. But this tan color that I used for the floor just isn't working. To go back to my color inventory and see what options I have. Yeah, well, I can definitely say that this does not look finished. I can also say that it is white, what white needs to be, and that there's just a bunch of brown touch-up that needs to happen. And I'm just going to keep painting white on these sheets on top. I think with this third coat, they're looking okay. I'm not going to mess with the ones underneath. I'm hoping I do a decent job of brown touch-up. I might end up just using this brush. It just works. It seems to work really well. Get a nice clean edge with it. So if I can get the brown done, get the brown touch-up done and make it look decent. Then I just need to worry about the floor. And we'll do that. What is it, 11:30-ish? Okay. Yeah, I think other than, all the uneven edges that I need to clean up, there's a lot of cleaning up to do. I should be okay. And then I'll get the brown bed frames fixed, and then I'll see what I can do about the floor color. I'm not really sure if I'll use this or if I'll look for a different one. And then the outside of this, here and along the front and here, is painted green, that same green I was using before. And we'll get that done and then highlight the ladder. So I'm going to clean this brush up here. This handy. I think what I'll do now, so I'm waiting for that white paint has to get pretty dry before I start messing around with the brown. And I'll be using this brush and a little teeny detail brush, and being extremely careful because I don't want to keep going back and forth and making that happen. Take this off of here. There's our staircase that goes up to the observation hatch on the top of the sail. There's that. I'm going to go back to the hull. And there are ladders here. And what I did before is I used this super micron pen, extremely fine tip pen. Instead of trying to use a brush, I use this. And I'm going to make an effort to do the same thing this time. To some extent, this, as I've said before, the submarine is this interesting combination of hyper detail, impressionism. Hyper detail we'll be seeing in a little bit because I'm going to be going back and working on it. Hyper detail. Other things like this ladder that are like, it gives the impression of a ladder. As long as I get the lines, am I on camera? Yeah, that's not bad. Even. That's just easier to do than trying to do it with a brush. This is probably why I can mess around with the submarine, for an entire stream minus break. And all I have to show for it is that the inside of this is green, and then there's a ladder. That I made a mess of the pillows and sheets on the bunks. Okay. I think I'll try to get the top of this a little bit even. I don't think this is going to show because that's where the floor comes across. The floor comes in between there. So there, that's how a ladder looks. Now I got to do this other one. The other one's a little shorter, but we're, doing the same thing to it. And, some of it's just going back and forth, I guess, until it looks kind of even. Trying not to get impatient. That's when things flip. Slowing down because I was getting a little impatient. It's starting to move a little too fast. Okay, fine. Felt tip pen. It's failing me there. Don't have that nice even line that I had on the other. Needed to change the orientation. Not right. And I'm going to have to take a desperate measure here. Just going to do that right away. Let that dry for just a second. Look for the top of the pen, which I know I set down somewhere because I took it off. So it's got to be here somewhere, right? There it is. Okay. I need to get some of this green paint out. I need to do this, but I need to take a little dot of it. Get the itty bitty brush. And I need to make this line the tiniest little bit less. Okay, and then there, I need a dot of green paint. I'm sorry, this is off camera, and I have to hold it like this. There's no other way I can get it done. I'm fixing the bottom rung of this ladder. It's got too much ink on it. And then I can come back with the pen and just touch that up a little bit later. Okay. So I'll need to put a little bit of the black ink on it. Tiniest little dot. I have to be very careful so I don't mess it up again. After that paint dries, which will be in a little bit. Yeah, so what do we need to do here is I'm going to take my break a little bit early because I want this to dry. I want this white paint to dry, and it's getting there soon. So I'll come back, and I'm going to be using the brown color and trying to clean up all the mess that has been created with the white paint. And then floor color. It's really sad because that's just the right color. It's the same as the color of the box top. But that paint is just not any good. So I'm going to look at my color chart. See if there's an option. It's this color here. That kind of pinkish color. Okay. This is too brown. That, but this is, I use that for anything else. I think it's really close to being the same color, but it's a Tamiya paint. It's the Vallejo paint instead of the Tamiya, and I think that I think I'm just going to try that. I mean, I'm going to pull it out over break, and it's really close to the same color here. Color did I use on this? Sorry, I'm muttering to myself. I'm trying to figure out. Bone white. That's a good color. Why did I say? Oh, okay. Anyway, I'm going to try this other one when I come back and repaint the floor because the floor has to be redone. As I'm going to try this. It's very similar in color, but probably a different composition, a different texture. I'm going to put a little mixing ball in here, maybe thin it a little bit. Actually, I've been using this fairly often on other models, and it's been working okay. I might have already put a mixing ball in here, so now there'll be 2 or 3 of them, because what I haven't done and I needed to do was go through all the Tamiya paints and put a mixing ball in each one of these little containers, and that would require me sitting down and doing that for all of them. It would be really worthwhile in the use of my time, but I haven't, and so fail again. Okay, so use this color. I'll be using this color. And just to give you a preview, going back to the detail here, is that there are all these junction boxes, and I found a kind of a bluish gray color that I'm going to say is junction box color. These are all conduits that are molded onto the surface, and I'm going to make an executive decision and say that those are painted the same color as the bulkhead, that they were just spray painted over. And then there's a clock, and there's gauges here and here and here and here. Those I'm going to paint white, and then make an attempt somehow to catch the rims and the dials that are on them. Like the clock has hands and 12 dots on it. So on this, the trick will be, I'm going to paint the junction boxes, and I'm going to paint the insides of the clocks and the dials, and then let that rest, and eventually this will be painted that green color, all of the parts that aren't these other colors. And I'm going to thin that down quite a lot, even if I have to put 3 coats on. Otherwise, I'm going to end up with all sorts of brush marks, like I ended up here. I mean, now that it's drying, they're not quite as obvious, as the glossiness of the high points are, but it'll just be nothing but brush marks. So yeah, that'll be a little bit of a challenge, and we'll be doing, this will probably take the better part of 7 years at the rate I'm going in order to get this looking the way I want it. But, it's there, and it's kind of a little bit of a challenge. So I'm going to take the challenge and see what I can do with it. Yeah, so I'm going to take a break now, short, kind of like until about 20 after or something. I'm going to come back and work very, very carefully on all the brown around the beds to try to make it look not messy, okay, as much as I can. And then I will paint the floor with this new color this new paint that I got out. And if that is a success, then I will be painting the green all around, letting that dry, and then doing the same with the ladder that I've done before with a little pen. Speaking of which, I can take the little pen now and fix the ladder that I fixed before. So I got a little bit of green. I put the black went a little bit too far here. So I put a dot of green in, and the dot of green covered over just a little bit more than I wanted it to. Get this even line across the bottom. And I'm going to call that a success. That gives the clear impression of ladders, at least as close to being good as I can get them. I'll stop muttering. Yeah. So I'll be using brown paint, be using this on the floor, be grabbing this color. I hope I thinned it enough. A little more thinner in while I'm thinking about it. Pretty sure I put one of those little mixing balls in. And I'll be painting the junction boxes. So you'll begin to see on this, you know, where the detail is. I'll be using the same white that I'm using on the sheets for the dials of the clocks and the gauges. And what I'll be doing with the white is I'm actually going to paint over the rim. And then I'm going to use either that felt tip pen or something else that I'm thinking of as a way of painting those rims later. Yeah, so there's that. Anyway, I do need to take a quick break, and it's a good time to let this dry a little more thoroughly, and I will be back in about 20 minutes or so, and we'll continue to make incredibly slow progress, arduous and slow progress on the submarine. And I promise that I will make an effort to actually do a little bit of assembly today by putting the torpedo racks be something, wouldn't it? To have some assembly. I need to scrape paint off of there, obviously, because it isn't going in the little holes very well. So there's paint in the holes and there's paint on that. So these three racks might be installed, and then this section will be ready for the next step of assembly, if we ever get that far. I'm looking at this, and actually I've got all the pieces for the sail. The section up here, I've got all of those pieces now ready to go. So if I actually do start assembling, I could probably get this done. What I won't be able to get done is this bulkhead with the bunks and the torpedo racks, because I wanted to try to get rid of some. It doesn't show nearly as badly as it did before, but I want to buff this down just a little bit. Just give that a try with some really light buffing to get rid of some of the brush marks. Yeah, I keep saying I'm going to take a break, and I actually will. So I will be back in about 20 minutes. Thanks for bearing with me. And we'll continue with the incredibly slow, almost negligible progress in the production of this submarine when I get back. And during break, I didn't really get a break because I was doing like tons of fail here. I was getting the right paint, and then I was getting some tools that I'll be needing for some assembly, some needle files, so that I can clean out the paint that will be getting in the way of the cementing, because that doesn't take very much if the tolerances are close to get in the way. But I decided, well, I just got this brand new liquid cement that I'll be using for the assembly, and it didn't open. It didn't come out. So I opened it up, and snipped off the tip like it said, and it didn't come out. And what turned out is that there's like an internal seal in there that they don't, it just isn't even supposed to be there. So I had to break off the cap, get the drill it out, and now I've epoxied the cap back in because it was leaking all over the place. Anyway, it was just like one thing after the other. This was not a very relaxing break time. No, not at all. This show, this is basically a grumpy old guy complaining about how hard it is to get these things done, and how nothing ever goes right, and on and on and on and on. And I do a pretty good job of that. So they gave us this thing. The last time I had one of these tubes of cement, they had this really fine wire that goes into the tip, to clear it out. Is that it was long. It went out about that long, and I don't know where it is. I very, very carefully saved it for decades. This one was shorter. And then there were two of them, and one I stretched out so that it was long enough. And of course I dropped it, and it is somewhere, I don't know where. It's this tiny little piece of wire that's virtually impossible to see. So I'm just going to really complain and whine a whole lot now about how that went, because it didn't go well. So I'm hoping that the next bit will go well, more or less. The next bit is getting out the brown paint that I've used for the bed frames and attempting to get nice even lines around the sheets and cleaning up the edges. And yeah, and the sheets are still, even with 2 coats, are not really looking great. Yeah, I didn't plan to do this, but I think I'm going to put another coat of white on the top sheets at least. Why not? I mean, why not give it a try, right? Yes. Actually, in some ways, if one is watching our Dungeons and Dragons campaign, our Tabaxi Bard is a Tabaxi, and in fact does have 2 coats, so to speak. I think technically that is the case. Okay, here, use this little brush again. This one was working fairly well. To attempt to make these white again, whiter at least. Since I've got the white paint out, I threatened would be the case, I'm going to paint the basin dials on the in the bulkhead, the other bulkhead that I haven't done yet. Freshening up the sheets here. Oh, okay. Well, the polystyrene cement, if you haven't worked with it recently, has not changed in terms of its the strength of the smell. Okay, well, that extra paint, yeah, it made it look better. So I'm glad I did that. Anyway, what I'm going to do is take out the really fine-pointed brush, clean this off a little bit. And if you can't see them, they're really kind of hard to see. They will be turning white. These are the dials. As I promised, I'm going to go all the way around the edge and paint the rim as well as the dial. Doing that intentionally so that I can see it better when I attempt to paint the rim and the little stuff on the inside. And this is covering well enough here, kind of surprisingly, that I probably don't need to put an extra coat on. Anyway, I'm going all the way around the outside of these things just to make sure that I can clearly see the detail on the edges. And the same sort of thing is going to happen with the junction boxes when I paint them, is I'll be going down around over the edges because I'll be painting up to them with the green, not knowing in advance how many coats of that I'm going to end up using, but it'll be more than one. So as I mentioned, I'm going to thin that paint pretty seriously. Use it because I want I don't want brush marks all over this. And I'll be using this little brush to be painting in between all these little details and stuff. And if the paint isn't thin, it's just going to glob up. Here at least I can clearly see where everything is. You can too, because it's it's just there. So those are those are each one of the torpedo tube hatches has something, probably like a pressure gauge or something, I'm guessing, to show you how much air pressure is in there, because he uses air pressure to shoot those things out. This is a clock. And then these are, I'm not sure what these do, but they're some sort of big gauges. Anyway, yeah, so there's that. I'll be getting out the other bluish, grayish, green kind of color to paint the junction boxes probably later. But what I want to do now, what I don't want to do, what I will do, is I'm going to get the red-brown paint and make a real effort at touching these up. They look okay. We'll see. We'll see how we do. At least I've got white. The sheets are white now. Try this brush. This kind of angled brush. It's really, as opposed to the really teeny brush. I'm not sure if this is going to be a good idea or not, but we'll see. We'll see how it holds and lays down the paint. This is just like stupidly delicate work. Okay, that paint is flowing into a little bit of a channel there. Say that that's where it belongs. Really? Yeah. Okay, what seems to be happening here is this brush didn't get clean. There's still white paint in it. And since it's white paint and I'm using a white paper towel, see that? And so it's anyway, yeah, it's not coming across well. We have to do more, touching up on that later. Okay, I'm going to move the camera. I don't care if it's in front of my face or not, but I need to be able to see what I'm doing. Like I said, there's this little bit of a gap, a little indentation between sheets. Oh, I know what the problem is. Yeah, I think the white paint is still wet when I put that third coat on. Uh, well, I know it's not here. Stuff's been drying for a long time, and yet this color isn't covering. Okay, this is not what I expected to happen. I would say, like, totally unexpected in terms of the way this paint is going. It's going to give it some more stirring. Maybe it's just not mixed well. But we use this red-brown paint so much, so often, and I've never had trouble with coverage, ever. I think maybe it's just the brush. The bristles are like too stiff. Guess I'll go to the other brush and see what happens. This one. Yeah, no, that's working. Yeah, so it worked okay for the white paint, I guess, in terms of spreading it, but it's not working well for this. The orientation for you is not good, but at least it's on camera. kind of okay, but not great. I'm painting the edges of the pillows here where they hit the frame. Oh, that would have been good. I almost dumped the bottle over. Not been good at all. Probably too far. It's one of those things where you look at it from one side and it's just fine. You look at it from the other side and it's too far. That's what happened there. So I'm going to mutter to myself quite a bit here as I am attempting to get these bunks right. And I'm picking up lint on the brush and just whining about everything because, yeah, it is a whiny sort of event. It just is acting whiny-ish. I've used this paint a lot, but never so much really in it for detail like this. And it's really with any of the brushes very well. Like I need to get a dot of paint on it and then push it around with the tip of the brush, which I really don't like doing if I can avoid it. As I said, it's not perfect, but I think it's getting close to being okay. I need to put a little bit white here and here where I was painting it from this side and it looked fine, but then the other angle, it just didn't. This is definitely going to get all over the floor. It's okay. You painted a different color. same sort of thing happened again. That's not good. I'm going to try to get some of that off because it got kind of thick. Clean up that line later. I'm going to just keep playing with this for the better part of forever. I want them to look okay. Probably would have had more success if I just like cut little pieces of pillowcase or something, or an old sheet or whatever, and glued onto the beds. Probably would have turned out better. There, this one's mess. That one's really a mess. Okay, well, let's just say it's getting there. It's getting there. Did I? No kidding. I just did. Just touched it with the tip of the brush as I was bringing it up to the surface. Just amazing. What we have here is we have what appears to be the impression of beds. I can't say that they're perfect, but they're not awful. I need to do a little bit of white touch up, where I went too far because I was looking at it from the wrong angle. The edges just so uncooperative here in terms of getting them even. It's a lot better than when I was 11. They look better than when I was like 11 years old and doing this. So I guess that's something. But this is why this submarine is taking 700 years to make. He's dinking around with bed sheets like this. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. Wait for the brown to dry, and then we get the white out again, and just try to do tiny little bits of touch up. I need to get that edge between the brown and the white moving back and forth. So what I'm going to do now is I can do one of two things. Yeah, these are the bunk beds. Yeah, I know. It's just it's not coming along terribly well. I just getting the edges straight. I'm glad you could join in on Submarine Wednesday. Yeah, I'm the camera here. You can see I've got parts here. I got the torpedoes in the racks. I've got the base coat of green on the inside walls of some of these, including this bulkhead. So that's about ready to go. And I'm trying to get these bunks painted so that they're not awful. And I'm succeeding in making them look B-. But I'm letting the brown dry now, and then I'll touch up with white again. And then I have to go around the edges. The outside is green to match the hull color. And yeah, well, actually, I did build this when I was a kid. This is vintage 1960s. And I built it when I was probably in maybe 7th or 8th grade when it came out. Maybe a year or two after it came out, probably not right away, but I saw it and got it and built it. And let me just tell you that my eyesight was better, but we didn't have the paints and the patience and that sort of thing to try to do the detail that I'm trying to do here. But, it's coming along. So what I'm hoping to accomplish today is get this done enough so that I can put together the forward torpedo room. And the whole forward torpedo room is dependent upon this bunk because it's one of the first things that gets cemented into the bulkhead here. Yeah. So the parts that I can work on are I can install the torpedo racks into this. There's a double wall up here in the torpedo room, I guess, to prevent explosions. I don't know. Prevent damage from explosions. So these get glued in here. There's 3 of them, one above the other. And I probably can get that done maybe yet today. And then we'll have some assembly done other than just the torpedoes and the torpedo racks. And I might be able to start working on the sail. All these parts here, plus these guys, go into the sail of the submarine. Did you do you had a dogfight? Did you break them by having a dogfight? Did you bring them together and smash them into each other and stuff? So I almost did that when I was younger. I don't know why they built this. It was really a dumb kit. It was how you get, some kits had chrome plated parts. They had, like landing gear and things came that way. There was a chrome plated 1/72nd scale Mustang kit. And I mean, the whole thing it was just like chrome plated plastic. And it was totally unrealistic because no plane ever was that. But I thought it was pretty cool. The chrome plating bubbled up wherever the cement touched it. And so it looked really scabby instead of really beautiful and shiny because the parts didn't all come together well. And it was tube cement. And so it got underneath the chrome plating and it bubbled up all over. But I thought, well, this would be really cool if this chrome plated Mustang attacked like a BF 109 maybe. Or maybe a Focke-Wulf 190. And I had these grand plans. I even went so far as I got some red construction paper, right? And I cut out tiny little flames that I glued onto the gun ports on the front of the Mustang. Yeah, hanging from the ceiling. That was a thing that could be done. is you put them on wires and I don't know that parents really enjoyed having holes put in their ceilings particularly. I don't think that was something they really liked. But yeah, you could hang these models. Anyway, I was going to hang my model up on the ceiling. I was going to have this dogfight, and I was even planning to break the wing off of the Messerschmitt and use cotton balls and gray paint and stuff and flames and make it look like it was blowing up. But I never did that because time and things and stuff. And I'm looking around at this, and there are spots that still needed to be brown, but aren't. These little white spots that are like right under. It's just so annoying. You just turn the model another way, and then there's these little spots like that are barely visible, but just managed to show. I'm not even sure what's happening there. It's like there's got there. I mean, not just a spot, but a lump. Yes, so I'm glad you actually got to do that. I never, turned it. And there's a spot here that definitely is not painted well. So I never did my chrome-plated Mustang Messerschmitt battle. Although I thought about it a lot. I had it all planned out, about how it would look and how I would pull it off, and never really did. But it was a grand idea. It would have looked really cool with the plane bursting into flames hanging from my ceiling. That was just, something that had to exist only in imagination. So how did they? Oh, well, thanks for joining in. Appreciate it. We're going back to minifigs on Friday. We don't get Submarine again until next Wednesday. Did not look at this thing from this angle, and it looks totally messy. Glad I picked it up and rotated it. Like, there's one bunk that came out well. These two here are not too bad. Some of these others, the ones on this side, just didn't come out very well at all. Okay, well, a little bit of an improvement that I wasn't planning to have to improve, but there it is. Back of what I was going to do. I was going to do one of two things. I was either going to paint the junction boxes onto this bulkhead, where I just drop some water, or I was going to I think I was going to start prepping this to put torpedo racks in. I've got a whole hour yet, so I can pretend I'm making progress on something here. Why not? I'll do these. I'll do the junction boxes. I'll bring the camera down a little bit further, and I think I can focus on that. This is really old paint. So I'm going to give it a real stir. And it's just the right color, so I hope it works okay. It's not covering very much territory. It's just tiny little bits of junction boxes all over the front of this thing. And by the time I'm done with this, the brown should be dry enough that I can get the white out and just see if I can't get this all to a satisfactory spot. Looks like it's coming along. Let me give this a little bit more of a mix. Okay. And this, what I'm going to be doing here is the same as I did with the dials, is I'm going to be over painting them. That is to say, painting them onto the background, because I'll be painting green onto them later. The whole bulkhead is green, just like the other ones. This is almost exactly the same color as the breaker box in our basement, our electrical breaker box. So I figured, yeah, I mean, if you're going to do junction boxes, it's probably the color you would use. And I'm pretty sure that's what these are, because a whole bunch of the conduits that are printed onto the model come into these. So pretty close to that one dial. What is it with that white paint? It's either the other paints don't adhere to it, or it like dissolves it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that is, but like here, right where that white paint is, it's not covering. And the same thing was happening on the beds with the brown paint. I'll have to come back to that a little bit later. Each one of these, let's say that these are junction boxes too. Each one of the torpedo hatches has this little protuberance that doesn't look like it's part of the hatch. Again, I'm not really sure why I'm taking so much time to do the detail on this. It's hardly going to be able to be seen once the model's put together. But it's there, and it seems like if the model designers decided that it was worth the effort to put this on, worth the time to paint it. Why not? Way too much on the brush, so it's going to get rubbed off here. It's just going to leave a mess later if I don't take care of it. Come back around to that when I rotate it. So there's little bits there that don't seem to be related or attached to anything that makes sense. So paint them junction box color. To say that, even though it's messy because I'm getting the paint down onto the surface underneath, it's kind of coming alive seeing these different colors on the and start seeing the detail as the designer intended it to be. Decided I'm not going to try to paint all these conduits. I'm going to live with the fiction. Maybe it's the reality. I'm not sure. That they would have just been. It would have just been painted over when the bulkhead was painted, and so yeah, be real careful with this. This junction box has the clock on it. To paint up to the rim of, but not over the rim of the clock. If I get a little bit on the rim, I guess that's okay because I have to try to make the rim black later somehow. Let's see where the clock sits on the face of this box. Done with these junction boxes, I'm going to get the white paint out again and go back to the bunks and continue to work on the boundary between the bed frame and the sheets. There. Now you can see where the clock face is. And at some point in the future, I'll be attempting to get the rim black and to mark the hands, the dials. It looks like it's 20 to 6. I have to get maybe, or quarter after 6, I have to get my head magnifiers on in order to be able to read the clock. But believe it or not, yeah, the hands of the clock are on there. So those are all the junction boxes, the dials and the junction boxes, and those are the areas that need to be detailed. I mean, they will show as detail, hopefully, when this chunk of when this bulkhead is done. Turns out it's the whole green. Anyway, yeah, it's going to be fun painting this. Yeah. Let's see. Those are some spots there that didn't cover. Again, the white paint. Paint is not accepting other paint. It's friendly to its other colors. I guess if I let it dry like I did this one, you kind of let it dry and it serves as a primer coat, and then I can come back and do the touch up around there where the paint hasn't quite adhered. That corners of that. Ugh. Got right up to, but not onto the rim of that dial. Yeah, and just I'm gonna leave this here as a reminder that I need to come back to it. Just clean enough to work with. Okay, let me get the white paint out again, and we will do some more back and forth. Well, if you come back, that'd be terrific. Well, whatever is happening at your meeting goes well. Sometimes those can be deadly dull, and sometimes they can be, really critical. So I hope that yours is important and successful. And good luck with your stream. It sounds like your character painting will be pretty interesting. Okay, so I'm just going to try my best to get these edges even and looking good enough. Yeah, I haven't even had a chance to talk about 60s cartoons today. This has been so intense trying to get this working. Yeah, this is just a prototype. There's a set of 6 double bunk beds that goes just behind the bathroom. And then there's a huge bunk room down at the bottom of the ship. So 6, 7, 10, 14. It looks like there's 14 more bunk beds to paint. They're double bunks, so there's a little bit more room to work, but they're going to pose the same challenge. Sure, what more I could be doing in terms of painting skill to make this work, but yeah, it is what it is. It's just going to be, this is going to be one of these that's just good enough, just barely good enough when it's all said and done. Going quiet here, trying to get the bed sheet edge. I mean, they go through all the trouble of making their beds, right? It's supposed to look nice, and bed sheets are even. And all that. They didn't take into account the viscosity of the acrylic paint when they made their bed. Okay, I'm going to just say this is looking better. Perfect. Perfection is going to elude me. If you don't get too close. Too bad. I need this little spot of brown there, maybe on that corner sheet. Yeah. Sheet here a little bit. Great. This would not pass inspection. If the officers came through and climbed the ladder up here on the bunks in the torpedo room, they would go up here and just say, "Sailor, make this bed. These corners aren't tight. Your pillow's not laying correctly. This edge is ragged. Look, you've got a thread hanging out of the sheet here." You know, there would be that kind of stuff going on, almost certainly. But it is at this point now. At this point now, it is really close to as good as I can possibly get it. At some point, as close as you can possibly get it is going to have to do. So there's no getting any closer. Clean this off. Like I said, there's this tiny touch of brown that I need to do in one corner of the bed where it just shows just too strongly. And then I want to touch up one of those junction boxes where the paint didn't take because it didn't adhere to the white underneath it. Give this a handshake. Leave it just right here, right at the corner here. That tiny bit. And that's going to have to do now. It's going to have to be as good as it gets. rest of this is painting the floor. And that's going to have to wait a bit. Okay. That's, there's a tiny, tiny spot there that I want white. Just on this bottom bunk. And I'm just going to mess with it just a little bit more. You can see it right there. No, it's not perfect, but it's better. Yeah, I think it's time to stop. Yep. And now I need to pull out this blue-gray paint. And there was one of these junction boxes right around the clock. Paint didn't take the overcoat of the blue-gray. Let's have it out. I will check out all the others to see how they look. Maybe you could use a little more paint. That's part of the junction box. But whether that needs to be the green paint that goes under it later. But there's that. That's okay. I'm done with that. Um, that's not going to be worked on anymore today. That's going to wait until next Wednesday. What I can do yet today is finish up the bunks, hopefully by painting in the floor. And once that's done, then I can put this on one of the sticky tack things, holders, like this. Okay. And then I can paint the outer frame green, because that is the color it needs to be. Edge here, because I need to get around the back of this. Okay, I'm going to actually work on this bit next. How do they want me to put it together? Get the instructions here so you can read along with me. I'm going to be doing this part here. These 3 torpedo racks, these 3 here. Go into that, into those slots there. And then it will look like that, except painted. And they want me to And cement. They want me to start at the top and work down. I wouldn't have done it that way. I would have started down here and worked up, but they want me to insert them from the top down, which means this would go in here. Okay. And then this goes here. And this goes here. This. And they don't all fit very well, especially the bottom one. So what I'm going to be doing just to make it work is I have this tiny little needle file here. Since it's going to be cemented and it melts the plastic, that's how it adheres, is I have to actually get the paint off of some parts of these inserts here, because it doesn't work with the paint. It has to touch raw plastic. And so need to do without damaging anything is get some of the paint off of the insides of these openings. Cement will actually adhere by melting and welding the plastic. Right. See, that's the thing right there. I just totally screwed up. I had this really nice surface. I mean, it really is nice. And I scratched it. So I'm going to take some green paint and just do my best using a large brush, trying to avoid brush strokes. Fortunately, it's behind where the tubes go. Is touch that up. That's it. Now I just need to work more slowly and be careful with the tips of this. Okay. So I'm going to do the sides this way. You can see the texture, but that will hopefully not show because it's well behind where the torpedo racks go. But that's the kind of thing that can happen, is like you're doing really well. Things are coming along nicely, and then you get off camera because you're trying to hold things on your knee, and the needle file slips as you're trying to get the little bits of paint out. Yeah, great. Nice. Nicely done, Greg. Ones are need to get it off the bottom. Okay. The other thing I need to do is something similar on here, is get the get the paint off these prongs, because these are the things that need to be welded into the openings that I just cleaned up and messed up. Is the paint really that thick on there? That's why it doesn't fit. But I need to get the paint off of these little prong things so that they fit. And this one goes in here at the bottom. So test fit it. It's still keep taking it off of here, I think. This is why we always test fit things, because even though I've got the paint fairly well cleared off of here, and just just absolutely persist in making that same mistake over and over and over again. Steady hands. This one's kind of important because this is what actually holds it horizontal compared to the orientation of the hull. Okay. I mean, that's as far in as it goes. So that is what it will be. It is what it is. You take a little bit more off of the sides of these. These top ones, I think these fit pretty well. Okay. I mean, those go in there pretty well as far as they go. I do need, though, to take the paint off of, even though they fit. The same sort of thing happens here, is that the cement melts the plastic, and if there's paint on it, it doesn't work. And now we're getting very close to the time, and I'm actually going to cement parts onto the submarine. This is pretty exciting. I hope people are watching carefully as I attempt to get model cement not all over everything that I've carefully scarred with the needle file. Okay, so it says, for some reason, start at the top, glue in as they cement in. What they say is number 20 to rack 18 here. Rack 19, 19B, 19A. Oh, those are them. Never mind. Right, 19A. 19A, and then to the upper two, and then 19B, and then to 19. And yeah, that's the way it's supposed to go, apparently. So we'll start at the top and work our way down. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm not going to apply the cement directly to those holes. That's just asking for yet even more of a disaster. What I'm going to do is get a pin, which I had here. I had several pins here. And no, I don't have one. Up there. Is I'm going to put the cement onto another surface, take a little bit on a pin, and then apply it to the insides of these and push through so that if there's too much cement, it pushes through to the side you can't see. At least that's what I'm aiming for. So what I'm going to try to do is get these 3 torpedo racks assembled into this, which is this piece right here that goes into the front. And then once the bulkhead is done and the bunks are done, the bunks get cemented in, that little walkway gets cemented in these 3 torpedo racks, and it forms this, which then attaches to this with these 3 little prongs. So we'll see if this is working. I had to epoxy this whole thing together earlier in order to make it work at all. Because there was a seal on the inside of the cap that wasn't really supposed to be there. You know, there's cement not really coming out here. There we go. Got that back up. And I'm going to try take the cement and attempt to apply it carefully to the insides of these using a toothpick because it's not adhering to the pin. But I had this puddle and I dropped a pin in it. What can go wrong that hasn't already gone wrong? That is the question. What could yet go wrong that hasn't already? What could go wrong is really getting any of this onto the surface of the insides of these things. Looks like I am because I'm getting green paint on the toothpick, which means it's sort of dissolving into the paint. At this point, though, the worst that can happen, I mean, it's not the worst. There's all sorts of things that can happen that are bad. But the thing that's most likely to happen is that there's not enough cement in here. And so it doesn't hold. And if it doesn't hold, then the pieces will fall out and I'll just have to do it again. This stuff does not set up really fast, so I've got time to work with it. I hope, anyway. Okay, so we're going to... This is the top. is put them in. Top to bottom as instructed. I really think it would have been easier to do it from the bottom to the top, but who am I to argue with instructions? Okay, these torpedo racks are now inserted into these holes. And, you know, one thing I can do, this would actually probably be a good idea, even though it's a little messy, is see how they protrude in the back? I'm going to do this. That'll never show. You've seen it here. It's a really bad way of doing things, but it will definitely hold them in place. And make sure that I get cement on my hands so that if I touch the plastic, it will, yeah. Ta-da! Make a mess. Yeah, that looks like torpedoes on a rack attached to a bulkhead. And yeah, I mean, really, it's not too bad. Except I keep touching where I put the cement on the back, which was a bad idea because that was the idea I had. Bottom one just doesn't want to stay. I'm going to have to get the orient. I don't want them sagging. Okay, but these, I mean, that's just the way they are. They aren't in there like that. They look I mean, they don't line up perfectly. It's kind of weird that way. Looks like there's some of the glue got over the edges. I didn't notice that before, so I might do a tiny bit of paint touch up on these things. Because there's such a shininess there that I don't like. But that'll wait until these set. Them to look even. I'm going to stop playing with that for a minute. I'm going to set it down, and I'll come back to it a little bit later to make sure that it hasn't wandered off. I mean, that they haven't wandered off and become uneven. A lot of cleaning up to do after this at some point. Set it here so I can keep an eye on it. What I'm interested in doing is making sure that that they look even. Okay. The spacing among them, that they're not like one is way above the others. That's set for a bit. And I need to go back to the bunks. And what I'm going to do next is paint the floor yet again. Could probably do. Let's maybe get a little piece of tape. That looks okay there. If they will just stay there like that, it should be fine. Okay, I'm just going to do that. I don't know if this will work or not, but I'm going to try. Um, if they just keep moving just a little bit. Now, on the other hand, now they look fine in terms of the gaps. I'm just not going to mess with that. Time to paint the floor. This is a very similar color to what's already on there, but it's different paint. So I'm hoping that the coverage is a little better. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. It has to be better. It looks like it might need another coat, but it is working better than the other. Okay, and then I just need to somehow get the inside of this. This has been a particularly difficult thing to do. And I think actually once this dries, that it might actually be okay. It might cover well enough. The edge of this is going to be painted green. See any real problems with this? I think we have a success. We have much too much paint in the well, but that's okay. Torpedoes look there are some bright spots in the paint. There's a little bright spot in the red here where the glue, when I glued them together, the glue got up a little bit. So I get some red paint and touch that. And some of this white here where it's glossy. I don't want the glossiness. And so that's pretty well far enough along. This I'm going to let dry before I paint it green. Get the red. Now I'm just going to hopefully not screw this up. What I'm doing is, I don't know if you can see it, but there's the glue had a glossy texture to it. Yeah, I want it to not be glossy. I'm painting it over, but not touching the torpedo yet. Okay. And then this other color, and that was it, just that tiny little touch of paint. That hopefully will, once it dries, the gloss will go away. Color will be right. Really, I get the brush not clean enough. I'm going to have to play with the tape. Gloss is on the back. good enough. That's not the color. That's not the color. That's the color. And the situation here is similar to what it was before, is that some of the glue got on here and gave it a gloss. Just a little shininess that doesn't fit with the rest of the torpedo rack. So paint over that so that it's not shiny. There. And then the tape is holding these well enough so that they're not moving. I did an assembly. Ta-da, pretty exciting. Actually going to then take this and put it into the box here. And then the last bit, I think I'm going to go ahead and try this, is I need to paint the outside of this green. Do that now. Take a chance. I'm going to use a slightly larger brush. Basically, I'm just painting edges, so I should be able to do that, I think, without going over the edge, but this will help reduce brush marks. Bottom, I actually think I might go back to this brush that I was using before. The bottom there, once I paint the edges. Now, I'll get that in a bit. Need to paint the ladder, the insides of the rungs and everything, because this is green. And I'll be using the same technique as I used before with the little brush, the little felt tip pen. And then this prong thing is actually designed to hold the fire extinguishers that show up on the bulkhead. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself here, because the last thing I want to do a disaster. This part gets cemented up against the bulkhead. So what I'm mainly concerned about is if there's a little bit of a gap that the gap would show color. So I'm just painting the edge there, and then the back of this should not show. In case it does, this is bulkhead color here. I think I got that boundary there on the bed frame. Yeah, that's pretty okay. Okay, those edges look pretty good. Yeah, let's make sure the front of this looks decent. And then I'm going to take this larger brush and do two things. Well, paint the bottom. And paint the bottom with this big brush, basically just dealing with the brush mark issue. And although this is not likely to show, I'm going to paint this with a bigger brush too, just again, so that there's not brush marks on it. Okay. And there. It's not perfect, but it is adequate. That is the triple level. I'm sorry, but you are now bunking in the forward torpedo room. Bunks. And they're just, I don't know. I mean, they're just not perfect, but I really don't think I can do any better than this. Not with the skill that I have. So, one little spot there. Yeah, I'll just do that with this little brush. It's just this one little spot that I see that it's the corner here. Yeah, I mean, that's just a little bit, but I think it improved it. Yeah, I went up too high. I unimproved it. I de-improved it. I went from not enough to too much. Now I have to wait for that to dry. I can't put the brown paint on it. But that was not as relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons as it sometimes is, but I've actually gained some progress. I have installed some torpedo racks on the bulkhead, the inside bulkhead here. Get that. That'll dry. The cement will set, and that will be ready to go. This bulkhead just needs a little bit of buffing. I think I'm going to try to get the brush marks off here a little bit before I complete it. And what will be happening is this bunk, once it's done, will go there, and the torpedo racks will go here, and this little walkway will go there. And then this whole thing will attach to that, and we will have the inside of the forward torpedo room done and ready to be installed at some point in the future. And then I'll work on the sail. Those parts are all completed. They're ready to be put in. As is, if we look at this next set of instructions, all of this goes together to form the sail. This whole thing gets put in here. The escape hatch goes up there, and then this forward bulkhead, which requires a good deal of work yet, finally gets put in. Yeah, so actually this I can put in much later. That's the last thing that gets put in the front up here. So if that gets done like 3 steps later, I suppose that's okay. This whole thing is really pretty intricate. And yeah, we'll assemble that next week, Wednesday, when we get back to Submarine Wednesday. Yeah, I should be able to finish the sail. I should be able to finish the torpedo room, except for the forward bulkhead, which has all of this immensely intricate detail in it. Okay, that all has to be background colored green, and then I need to do the dials and the clock face. But all of the parts for the sail are completed and they're ready to go. So hopefully I'll be able to do that. And then this, I just messed up a little bit. I need to do tiny little touch of brown back here on the edge corner where I put too much of the floor color. I'll probably do that. I'll probably do that off stream anyway. Thank you for watching. I'll be going back to minifigs on Friday. Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. If you like what you've seen, please feel free to become a subscriber and a follower and a subscriber if you can. That would be a terrific thing to do. It would be much appreciated. And yeah, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 10 until 2. Break in between. Dungeons and Dragons stream is Sunday at 2. Thanks again, and we will see you from behind the camera on Friday at 10ish. Bye.